All right, well, I see that it is 1 o'clock, and I would like to call this meeting of the KPI Task Force to order. And I'll just note that our member Adrian Byram will be a little late, but he will be joining us shortly. So Deborah, could we have a roll call?
Absolutely. Castillo.
Here.
Fitzgerald.
Here.
Hildreth.
Here.
Selden.
Here.
Walker.
Here.
Ojo and Dallasay are not here.
Okay, hopefully they'll join us. They do have something on the agenda today. Are there any changes to the minutes of the meeting of February 3rd?
There's Joyce is there.
Oh, there's Joyce. Hi, Joyce.
Hi,
Joyce,
hello.
any changes to the minutes?
No.
No, okay, we'll approve them as submitted. And now do we have some comments from our members? Deborah?
We certainly do. We have one in-person speaker. If we could have Mary England step up and state your full name and Rossmore address.
Afternoon, Mary England, 1200 Fairlawn Court, Entry 5, number 8. I just have a question for clarification. And I understand you're typically not responding to member forum comments, but when you get to the draft KPI task force recommendation, I have a question for clarification. The recommendation is to consider use of metrics in RWC property management service provision and to determine possible balance of metrics and functions of service that would align most closely with those types of metrics. Are you asking for metrics from RPM that are provided to RWC functions or mutuals or both? That's my only question. Thank you.
Thank you. And that concludes the member forum.
Okay, chair's report. We've been, staff has been busy this month. Adrian's joining us. We're gonna hear a lot from Kelsey, so a lot of things have been going on this month. We also will hear a little bit about our little subcommittee that worked on this KPI framework that Joyce and Ife have created. So we are moving forward. I did draft some recommendations for us to discuss today. This is very preliminary. I just thought we needed to get some things on paper so we could talk about what we might be formally recommending or deciding to do for our last meeting, which is next month. So we don't have any unfinished business, so we'll go to our new business. And Kelsey, would you share with us the results of our survey, which thank you very much for getting up very quickly after our last meeting. I think that the task force achieving a survey and the staff getting it together and conducting it is a big success for our task force. But go ahead, Kelsey. Thank you.
So we did the survey from February 2nd through February 25th, and it focused on custodial services, reservation services, and tech services. We did get 57 responses for that, which is really good for those 3 weeks that we were able to do it. And the responses were mainly very, very positive, with most of the responses being very satisfied for each of the questions regarding reservation process, responsiveness, tech process, and cleanliness of the facilities. A number of the comments that we had in our comment box spent a lot of time speaking highly of our staff and the process that they've gone through. They're very thankful for all of the staff support and the staff discussions they've had throughout the whole process. So this gave a lot of really good feedback on how we're doing. Each response that had a question or seemed like something didn't go as intended, our staff followed up and spoke with each of the clubs individually or the rental individually to understand what the issue was and how to remedy to make sure we better understood everything that they were experiencing through the reservation.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Jen.
I read, so a lot of the comments that were problematic, they seem mostly to do with AV. And I've experienced it myself in many venues where the mics just don't work right. So how are you addressing that? Because
Our managers are reviewing where the issues were noted, and our custodial manager specifically is reviewing the different equipment to see if it is equipment error, operator error, if we need different plug and play programs or demonstrations to kind of better understand what happened during the reservations.
yeah, it's mostly those handheld ones.
The
that go out all
Bluetooth
the
ones
time.
and the Wi-Fi ones.
Go ahead, Alan.
My experience with those is the people that are using them don't know how to use them. You gotta put those mics up to your mouth. And this goes across my men's group that I'm with. They'll start talking, the mic goes all over the place and nobody can hear.
And sometimes other Bluetooth equipment, kind of the feedback will affect it. It just depends on what kind of equipment we have.
Go ahead, Wade.
So Kelsey, I mean, to see 93% very satisfied with the reservation process, 93% satisfied, very satisfied with staff responsiveness, 89% very satisfied with tech, and 93% satisfied with room setup, and 96% with cleanliness and readiness. Those are just fantastic
They are.
numbers.
Yeah.
And they create what Alan has been asking for all along. What's our goal? And we can't have a KPI without a goal. I mean, this clearly sets the table for what a KPI could be in terms of qualification or quality of service. And I commend you for gathering all this data. I commend the staff for making all of the satisfied customers. But I think it's very important that we publicize these numbers because they are very, very good.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Nancy.
well, yeah, and just to kind of add to that, that I think it could be a key deliverable from this committee to publicize these numbers. But I think we should, retroactively state that our goal was, that, because we really didn't have like a strategic goal that we were looking for to start with. But we would say, for example, that we focused on the reservations department, the vision and the mission of the reservations department, or whatever language you want to use, is to provide the best possible service to our customers. And we measured it, and we got 93%, all of those really fabulous numbers, but just kind of to backwards engineer what the goal was, so that we can publish that.
Well, that's a good recommendation. And I have a couple questions, and then I'll get you, Alan. It's great that we received 57 surveys. How many did you distribute, or what was the return ratio here?
I would have to double check what the exact number was, but any of our reservations that were in the facilities that we talked about, not the no Vino service, received one. Some multiple times, which one of the feedback was, not every time, please, just one is fine. Yeah, I would have to check to see what the total number was.
Okay, I'd just be interested to know how many folks responded. And I know you asked them to respond by a certain date, and if they didn't, did you send another survey or you just sent it once?
Just sent it once.
Okay.
Mhm.
In thinking about this, I think we've done it, we executed it at a time. I'm not saying there wasn't a lot going on, but one of the recommendations I think we should make is that we do something like this on a regular basis. Maybe it's quarterly or 3 times a year, something like that. And how do you think this, or do you think there'd be any difference if we distributed this during that historic booking period, like that August to September, that time? What do you think?
Specifically for the booking process or their whole experience over that calendar year?
Well, I don't know. I mean, that's something I think we should talk about. We don't have to figure it out today, but in terms of how we're moving forward, if we do it on a regular basis, I would want to have some recommendations from staff about when might be the appropriate times to do it. And maybe we would do it at times when you're super busy and times when you're not busy. But this is more about reservations and events, and maybe, we would look at reservations specifically when we were doing that historic booking time, because I know that can be challenging.
I think you're looking at something a little bit different
Yeah.
during that time, and your survey would be designed
Differently,
with a different focus area, not so much on actual rental or AV, but more the overall process for securing your historical dates.
Right. Good, go ahead, Alan.
First of all, I had the same question you did about the number of surveys. But I think, in my experience with our club, we've had great responses in setup, with the setups and the actual event and the AV people. I don't dispute any of that. The negative feedback I get is always at the front end when you're trying to get your rooms set up for the calendar year. And that's where I think most of the negative comments that I hear come from at that point. So I think that's worth looking at.
That statistic, I forget where I saw it, that 76% of all room requests are fulfilled as requested. And then when we're going back and forth, another 22% or whatever, and so that virtually no reservation requests are not filled. I said that correctly.
Like one, maybe.
Yeah,
it's
that's like
the same
really
one.
key information that
Yeah.
needs to get out there but to your point, I mean, obviously the year-end booking process and all that, it is a different thing, but at least people should know. Whatever problems existed in the past in the reservations process, they're solved. People are happy. They're 99% of the rooms the requests are being satisfied. And important.
Go ahead, Dwight, and then, yes, Adrian, go ahead. Dwight first, Adrian? Okay.
Well, I was just gonna say that, what we said all along is how do we get to a KPI that we measure
Yeah,
against?
right.
And so when you look at the two elements that we're talking about here, quality of delivery and unmet demand, those are two KPIs to follow going forward. And then the question, and everybody has mentioned this, what's the staff's goal? What's the staff's goal in terms of those two elements? And then how is that communicated to staff? And then how is that communicated to residents? I think that's a big conclusion of this process for this area.
These are things that we could easily extrapolate to other amenities too, with respect to fitness or counseling or any other amenity in terms of what is the goal for performance delivery and what is the expectation or response.
Adrian?
Yeah, so I look at these and I'm impressed with the results. The question I have is really about how do we institutionalize this? This process, et cetera. My first question is, how much work did it take you, Kelsey, to do this?
The survey itself is not a lot of work because it goes through the online program that'll take care of that. It's reviewing all of the information after to kind of see who we needed to follow up on. It is not that much additional work for the staff because majority of the responses are positive. And to follow up with I think there was about maybe 15 that needed additional questions. It was fairly quick because we gave them a call, got our answer, and knew how to proceed.
Okay, so is it feasible to do this on a quarterly basis or something of that sort, do you think?
I think for the people that will do the survey quarterly is probably the most they might want to do. It was really good information to have for all of the events happening in that 3-week period. But I know especially with the groups that have recurring reservations, it's the same thing every week, every month. They're probably prefer not to do a survey each time for that. So maybe their experience over a few times a year is a good check-in.
So do you think like every 6 months is probably a reasonable goal?
2 times a year, maybe?
Okay, I'm just trying to sort of nail down something and say, okay, the recommendation of the committee will be that we do this every 6 months.
So if you do it every 6 months and then maybe you do one that's focused on the actual historical
Right,
process,
yeah.
reservations process itself at that time, yes.
Okay.
That would be great. The follow-up process, I mean, so are we going to set an accuracy KPI here that says it should be 90%?
Yeah, I mean,
You know,
yeah, what's the goal?
You know, I mean,
Yeah.
how do we achieve that? And understanding what that goal should be.
We're happy to come back to you at your next meeting with some recommendations from a staff perspective on what our achievement results we would like to hit.
Yeah.
And then you can maybe use that as a foundation for your discussion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Okay. Well, the interesting thing out of it was like the mics, you know, showed up as being a problem. Forgetting about the mics themselves in the particular case, but we will see things like that will first surface as a result of doing this. So what is our mechanism to surface that problem and you know, deal with the solution? How do we institutionalize that?
Well, I think what the benefit of this is looking for trends, right? So if the microphones are a trend line, then we know that's a problem we have to solve. If it's a blip because we had, you know, something out that we know we are already addressing, there's a resolution. If we're seeing a trend line of cleanliness or something like that, then we know it's incumbent upon us to strive for that, you know, whatever threshold it is. And if we're seeing areas where we need to address to get it back up there, that's what we bring to the board is, you know, if it's a expenditure, a budgetary thing, if it's a staffing level thing, if it's an internal mechanism thing. It's all based on kind of the analysis that we have to do after every survey.
So, but should we sort of institutionalize a report around it that says, here's the numbers we got, and here's the things that were reported as out of sync, you know, not appropriate. And here's our plan to deal with them. That would be sort of a standard part of the report that comes to the board.
Yeah, maybe something we work through the planning committee with as a landing spot of just an analysis of the semi-annual evaluation. And then I would think we would use those if there's budgetary areas we need to address during that cycle.
Alan, you had a question?
Yeah. So the area that we're looking at, they've said, okay, well, here's what we're going to do and here's our objectives or whatever. So then we do a KPI against that and we get a result. Seems to me the result of that KPI goes back to that group and they say, we tell them this is what we found. And then they decide what they're going to do about it. And later on, we'll do another KPI on that. And if there's no improvements, then hey, you know, here it is again. KPI to me is just the reporting mechanisms of what took place.
Mm-hmm.
It's up to the staff and the organization to either fix it or not fix it or ignore it, whatever they're going to do with it. We just report the data.
Yeah.
We don't do any fixing. I don't think.
No, I don't, I mean, yeah, I don't think that we do the fixing, but I think Adrian made a good point about, I mean, this is just kind of the first initial steps into a process like this. So, and we don't have any of these reporters, or I don't know if we have a Rossmore News reporter who can really press this story forward. No.
Am I supposed to talk here?
No. I'm talking about publicizing this and,
Yeah, well, that's why I'm here.
oh, good. Oh, okay.
I know, I didn't recognize you either.
Great freelancer. So, but anyway, I think that concept of having some kind of at least of our recommending a process for this particular initial KPI and looking at how we would want to consider other ones in the future is a really good, I appreciate those comments, Dwight, Adrian. I think it's good to be able to talk about a process, talk about reporting. I think having reports like this go to the planning committee particularly for RWC related activities might be something else for other activities, but I think I appreciate that.
Yeah, 'cause I mean, to me, it's sort of like, if you have these reports, they show up alongside your financials, okay? It's like, are we in good shape cash-wise? Are we in good shape in delivering this stuff? All sort of the same thing, really, from the board's perspective.
And it helps with budget time, knowing level of service.
But Jenny, you have a
So
question?
since this committee supposedly ends next month, we haven't gotten to the booking KPI issues. And I assume one of the recommendations I think I read was that you would like to continue this task force or some
In some
variation.
form, I mean, yeah, that's something for the board to discuss.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I think some other things, very different things will come up.
Oh, yeah.
Especially for clubs who get kicked out of their places a lot, like, it's my pet peeve, but, you know, if we've been given a room and then we have to move so many different times in the year, I think that should be part of a question in a booking survey, if you could note that somewhere.
Well, I think that what the suggestion here is that we create, and I don't know who the we is, but unless somehow this effort stays in place, that we create a specific survey for that historical booking period. And we can make that as a recommendation, certainly, and possibly staff will adopt that. You know, but this is just, I mean, we could create many other kinds of KPIs and other, you know, parts of all our service areas here in Rockmore. But we can certainly recommend that specific one. I think part of our discussion, our experience here, it's important for us to recommend that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Yeah, Nancy.
Back to the point about sort of backward engineering the goal. I would like to suggest maybe that the reservations department reconnoiter and come up with what is the vision, values, what is the goal, what are you trying to achieve? And because we already know what we measured, hopefully it's in sync with that. I noticed at the Activities Council meeting the other day that it was presented, we're here to tell you our new policies. And I have a little bit of a negative reaction to that. It should be, we're here to tell you about the service, what we're trying to do to serve you, to achieve the goals, to meet your club's needs and that, so that it's that the vision and value states we're here for customer satisfaction, we're here to do a good job, or so that's what you lead with, not leading with, we're here to tell you the new rules that we have that y'all haven't been complying with.
Did you really feel that was what was presented at the Activities Council?
Yeah.
That's extremely interesting to me because that's not at all what was presented at the Activities Council.
Yeah.
You mean Anne's presentation?
Yeah, it was, the lead was, we're here to tell you about
Go back and rewatch it with a completely different perspective, because what was presented on the screen was a slide that showed the very matrix that policy has been, I don't mean to.
No, it's okay.
This is an interesting case study of what people have as a expectation maybe, and what is actually delivered. Because it outlined, here are the policies, and we're gonna be having discussions at the policy committee. It was very purposeful to say, here are some of the different situations that policy needs to evaluate. Not that we're dictating to policy pro or con of the guest use or the club makeup or the rules around. It gave a matrix of what the different policies were that were going to be discussed with those different outlines. I invite you to go back
Yeah,
and
I
re-listen
listened to it, I
to it.
will go back with that in mind, but it's also, I'm just talking about what you lead with, right? That,
Yeah.
that this kind of work that we're doing here, we're saying, here's the vision and values for the department. Here's how well we're doing in satisfying all of your needs. That's, and then talk about the policies and stuff.
Okay, we'll see. Okay, any other questions on this item? I think we've had a great discussion on it, and hopefully it'll lead to similar surveys in the future. So Kelsey, I know you also continued to keep your stats on the facility reservation process, and Nancy, you were referring to that. So this is, Kelsey, why don't you tell us a little bit about that? I'm just reminding everybody at our last meeting, we had recommended that the keeping track of these, this information, these metrics be an ongoing activity.
We did continue, so from January 13th is when we started through February 25th. We did input 100 reservations, unique new reservations. And with those, the average time to complete was only 1.6 days. So that's from when they contacted reservations to when they had their contract is 1.6 days. 76 were completed without any issues, without any adjustments, exactly how they requested, the same day, same location, everything. 23% were accommodated with some sort of change. Typically, it was either a change in time or a change in date, location. And only one was not able to be completed. It's the same one from the last meeting that it had to do with adjusting a history booking, and we cannot book per policy that date quite yet. So 99% of the reservations that came through were accommodated from our staff.
Awesome job.
Yeah, good job.
Great. I thought it was interesting that you mentioned that the frequently requested spaces really were all over the place. Dollar Main, NPR 3, Fireside, Fairway, Club Room. It was just interesting that they're all over the place.
A lot of people do really enjoy NPR 3. It's one of our no service spaces, and it's the largest of the 3 at Gateway. So there's a lot of benefits to that room, and so it is requested quite often. And one of our no service and fee kind of split is pretty 50-50 of what is being requested. So those ones will still continue to be a little high.
Go ahead.
You don't track at all the ones you took off the reservation list, is that true? Like the Echo Room and the Garden Room, and I forget the other room.
So Echo, I'm trying to remember. Echo, the one I'm blanking on.
Echo's the one in
Pine, one right here, Redwood Room. Those are community rooms, so we do not book those.
Right, so you're not paying attention to who or what or where?
No, those are open for anyone to drop in, so we don't have reservations for those.
So did you think people asked for them and then they were told you can't reserve it?
Well, no,
Oh,
I'm just noticing every time I go by the Echo Room, it's empty. I don't see anybody using it. And I hate to see unused space, you know what I mean?
yeah, okay.
That's all. I mean,
So we've asked you to continue that. I mean, are we recommending that Kelsey and her crew continue getting these, watching the reservations on?
I think for a while, for sure. I mean, just doing it once is.
Well, she started in January, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you started right away. And I think we should continue it. I do think, and maybe you could come back, Kelsey or Jeff, next month and say, I think that whole historical booking period is very different than this. So I don't know if you would wanna kind of silo that out, or I don't know. I'm just interested to see if you think, how would this work in that historic booking period?
So if I'm remembering correctly, for historic booking periods, we have a lot more reservations. So this is
Yeah,
100
yeah,
within the
yeah.
last month,
Yeah,
and
no,
booking
you
will
have
be
a
the
ton.
entire year.
Yeah.
Thousands, right?
Yeah,
So I think my question is, would you or could you recommend, is there a time period during the year when you think what we have been doing for the last couple months
mhm.
really wouldn't fit your pattern of reservations, or we should say, okay, August to September, whatever, we don't do this kind of thing? I'm wondering about your recommendation.
Well, I think for this, it's interesting information to have in comparison to booking, because the historical, it's the same from year to year ideally, so nothing is really changing. So idea is the information doesn't change too much. These were all new reservations from mutuals to private and club. So it's a good way to see how the history booking affects the rest of the year. Because whatever is taken in the history booking kind of impacts what we're able to do the remainder of the year. So having this information is good to see if it gets to the point where we're not able to accommodate, it's easier to see why, and if it has something to do with the number of clubs and the number of bookings that they have.
I think it would be good to isolate a utilization report based on historical bookings and requests during that master reservation time, because there is a lot of, this is where a lot of your kind of anxiety, if you will, builds based on what you're able to maintain throughout the year, or if your location changes, so we can come up with some different things to be able to report on that gives kind of, here's the accurate snapshot of what took place during this period of club bookings.
Okay. All right, any other comments? Go ahead, Dwight.
Just one more. So I think these are great ways of addressing quality of service and unmet demand. I'm always curious about, what is the vacancy rate? What is the occupancy rate? What's the universe of what's available, and what is actually being used and not used? Because that's also an indicator of what groups have more access or not.
We don't track that.
We don't, so some rooms will be empty as they're not reserved, some are left because that's the turnover time, some are left, so we don't have the entire clubhouse booked, and being mindful of how much space we have and how much parking, custodial time, all of that. So it's not like apples to apples of if it's vacant, then it's free space, because there's a lot of other things that go in to make sure that we're being mindful of the usage and the staff's ability.
It's kind of a vacancy rate versus capacity rate.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I mean, what Dwight's getting at though is useful, because if we were to discover that we had more demand than we could fill, and there was space available, but there wasn't custodial available, then the board could make a decision that let's up the custodial, and we would get more effective rooms. But how do we make that decision right now? We don't have the data to do that properly. And we don't have the data to say, well, could we reduce custodial and cut our costs somewhat, because we're not really using that. That's what I'm just trying to get at, is that getting the data so that we can optimize it. But this is very useful. One of the questions I had was the average time to complete a reservation is 1.6. Averages in these kinds of things are helpful, but ranges are very important. I mean, is it 80% are done in a day and 10% take a week? or is it 1.4 to 1.8 days? Understanding that would be useful.
Okay. Anything else on this topic? Thanks, Kelsey, for all your work on this, and the staff, thank you, getting right on it. So now I just wanted to have a little bit of a conversation, because Adrian and Dwight and I, along with Jeff, worked through the KPI framework in terms of trying to analyze transportation services, which is a really important issue that we're working on right now. So just a little feedback. I didn't ask anybody to write anything, any observations you might have. And I'm really looking forward to our next item with the fellows report. Because we did give them a little feedback and they have modified the report a little bit, but in terms of the framework, one of the things that we're asked to do is try to determine the importance of different domains that we review these amenities with. And I know that Joyce and Ife will talk about that in a little bit, but we had to try to identify percentages of importance of different factors, and that was challenging. Not that we couldn't do it; it's an intellectual exercise, and you had to do it. But that was something that was challenging for me, and also I felt it could be really challenging to compare amenities. The tool, I think, really helps in looking at an amenity, a service, something like that. Would you want to increase it, decrease it, keep it going? Then and it certainly is used to compare things, but that comparison can be challenging. But anyway, Dwight or Adrian, do you have any comments?
I would just say that the framework is exhaustive and has a lot of things to consider. And it's not applicable to every situation, but it's like a menu of things that you can choose from. It's sort of like playing a pipe organ, right? You only do so many stops at a time. And is that a word? But we found, going through it with one area, we had a problem that needed clarification in one area, that it was very useful to analyze an amenity with those various options, taking a look at them. You know, for example, how important transportation is to the community, but at what cost? And that's, it started to narrow in on the issues that we have.
Any comments?
The framework is useful for making these, because it sort of identifies the things you have to think about.
Yeah.
But it's real difficult to try and assess or compare amenity A against amenity B when one is.
They're very different.
When they're exceedingly different, yeah.
It was I think it was a good exercise, and I think it's a tool that our fellows have developed that will be a product of our work here that we'll be able to use in the future. Any other comments, Jeff, from you? Okay. Well, then we have our fellows here, and I hope everybody has gotten a chance to look at their report. And did you want to review some things, Joyce and Ife? Take it away.
Thanks. So we resubmitted, we took the feedback that you guys provided and updated parts of it, but also resubmitted it. I know that there were questions regarding the formula, which I think Dwight had touched upon it. It is kind of like an organ where you have different levers where you can pick and choose which amenities you guys would like to focus on. And then based on those, in the Excel sheet, which we can update with the formula, basically you would plug in what you would want, and then in the Excel sheet, it will spit out the weighted average score, or the composite score. So ultimately, I think as a committee, you would decide what amenities you'll focus on and then what weight you would like for each amenity. And when you put it in the Excel sheet, it would actually output a composite score. So I know transportation might have been one option, which if you were to utilize transportation, you could actually break it down into maybe further subgroups within transportation and then decide what the weighted score would be for that specific amenity versus, another amenity that you guys decide on.
To also jump in, you will be able to see things like participation rates, frequency of use captures how often users actually show up and the trend direction shows whether usage is going up, it is stable or declining. So based off whatever direction it shows, it will tell you a different story than one that is steady. Then there is this part, the importance and impact. This comes directly under the resident survey. So residents will rate each amenity or the particular one you're reviewing, 1 to 5. There is a scale, and the impact if removed. So with those information also, an amenity might score average overall, but the critical for specific population. So the framework would also capture this in it. And same for cost efficiency, the way we've done the breakdown, you would also see the particular buckets on how this would work. So they're just different things that you'll be able to capture, and based off what is important, you would then be able to view it at a go. The Excel file, we had included some calculations, so or we can update it to include those formulas in it that once you input this data, there is another sheet that will just show you the results immediately. And however interpretation you want to pick, which is important, you're then able to pull that out of the Excel and you're able to make the decision.
So as a group, we had, and thank you guys, that's a very professional looking presentation as well. But as a subgroup, we had identified things that would go in the composite score, but we failed at the composite score step. And Jeff, I think you were.
Failed? You tried it and it didn't work, or what?
We just didn't understand how to get that composite score.
Yeah, it was
And
challenging.
so, Jeff, I think you were gonna ask Kelsey to work with the fellows that kind of walk through that, or, you
I
know,
think that might not have happened.
could we still do that?
Did you have a conversation with them about a specific amenity? It hasn't happened yet.
Okay,
Well, we
so,
can try to do
so we
that.
might ask you guys, Faye and Joyce, to, and I don't know if we provided those details to Kelsey, but we had come up with the components leading into that composite score, but we couldn't get there.
Yeah. Also, I have a question for you about the percentages that you apply to these various, the weights that you apply to these various different aspects of it. It's very difficult to come up with those in a meaningful way, especially across a group of people. I mean, I can sit down and say, oh, okay, this is how I would do it. Does it backwards to me. And now what do? Do we average it? Do we take the high score here and the lowest score there? Are there any rules for doing that across a group of people?
Yeah, I love that you noticed that, because we deliberately left the domain weights blank. We would actually prefer you come up together and you assign different weights, like let it be done individually, then averaging it out would be the best option. To just say that, okay, based off everybody's inputs, that's for this domain, we'll weigh this. And there should be some justification from everybody. Then it's just show cohesiveness at the end of the day, that it's not one person that's decided that this is how we're going to put in the weights. It's a group work and everybody has agreed on it. Yeah.
And it was interesting when we've been through it, remember, we had varying.
We had different.
Yeah, but by the end, we reached consensus by talking through it, and the appropriate rationale. So it was.
Now, have you had any experience or seen any studies done where it's done on a community basis? Because looking at our community, I can see some people would go 100% for this and 0 for that, and the other person would be exactly the opposite. You know, it'd be very difficult to find a place where everybody would sort of say, oh, okay, I sort of agree with that. What happens when you have strong diversity of opinions about something?
You hold an election.
Totally.
Have you encountered anything like that or?
From the research that we had done before we came up with this, one of our suggestion here has been we should consider hosting a weighting workshop and including a question on resident survey where residents rank the relative importance of each domain. It would be very good for us to host the workshop so that it's not emotional responses that we will get from people at the end of the day. So that might be the next pilot for us to be able to get like proper response on that.
It'd be interesting if we had one, but we had sort of a set of numbers that were agreed to sort of by a larger group of people. And then we could just sort of plug in every time we're doing one of these things and say, okay, that's the Rossmore distribution right there.
Will that always change though?
Well, no, maybe not. I mean, the whole point is that you don't change it actually. Because that way you can compare amenity A to amenity B.
So I just have one quick question, Nancy, and then I'll get to you. So, and I wanted to make sure that you know that at least I read everything. I'm not saying that everybody else didn't, but on, in our agenda packets, it's 7D-7. It's not numbered, but it's the application for 3.2 avoidable versus shared overhead. And I just want to check this because I want to make sure I think I know what I'm reading here. If closing the craft room would save $15,000 in dedicated staff, but $10,000 of the allocated utilities would simply shift to other amenities, only $15,000 represents true savings. Should that be only $5,000 represents true savings? I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I kept reading that and I think maybe that was just, I think it's supposed to be 5,000.
I think you're right. It has to be.
Yeah, okay. But anyway, I just, you know, I thought, I really was looking at this. I thought I want them to know I was looking at this. And, you know, I think this is so, there's so much useful information in here. And I just wanted to point out part 4, where you have defined a variety of KPIs and the definition, how to calculate them, and data sources. And if we move into the future where we're looking at surveys or analysis of various services, this is really valuable information. Thank you for including it. I just wanted to point it out. And we know there's all kinds of KPIs, utilization KPIs, importance, accessibility, cost efficiency, impact. So, you know, that quality versus quantity. And I just found that chart to be extremely helpful. Yeah. Nancy, you had some comments.
Well, yeah, just back to the kind of the previous discussion, right from the start of this committee, one of the things that I felt was desirable and important was, are the resources fairly allocated in our shared service model? And how do you measure that? And I had this vision in my head of, like, let's say we gave each resident 100 chits, if you will. You got 100 chits and you.
That's with a C. Chits?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't give up. No, never mind. And they could, so one resident A might say, transportation, I'm vision impaired, transportation services is all I care about. I'm gonna put all 100 chits over there. So there's a real strong weighting from that. Whereas another resident might say, I like the pool, I like the golf course, and I'm gonna disperse. So you, now you know, if you have that kind of like, how important is it? It's not just the number of people that use it, but how important is it to them? Because they can get more weight for that. And if there were any way to kind of measure that, sort of like what's important to residents, and do they, you know, are we fairly allocating it and finding a way to adjust it for somebody who all they're gonna do is take the bus versus somebody who's gonna, you know, maybe the bus is kind of important to me, but, you know, there's other things that are important to me.
Yeah.
What I want to say about that is, one, I can't tell you where I read it, in some committee meeting, there was a chart and, oh, it was about the usage of different amenities. And honestly, they were pretty equal. Like, from my reading of it, across the board, you know, it wasn't like extreme. There was a lot of people, you know, use everything or use what they use, but it all kind of seemed like it kind of averaged out. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I know it's not true for transportation. I don't think that was part of it.
Yeah, but if I knew, let's say I didn't use transportation at all, but I know that there's 500 people or whatever it is, it's very, very important to them.
Right.
They're taking their whole coupon, they're throwing it over at that, then I'm okay with that.
Yeah, it's hard.
Alan?
I've thought about this transportation thing off and on, and I was one early on that when I first heard about the needs and focusing on the real seniors and the people who have mobility issues. I've since changed my mind because you know what? You never know what's gonna happen tomorrow, but you may need that transportation. And so I feel that we all ought to be paying for it.
We are.
Because you just never know. It's like an insurance policy. You don't know when you're gonna need it until you absolutely need it.
So I have a question. So this, as we've said, is an exhaustive look at KPIs. What does staff think about it? Because staff need to use, utilize, and implement and execute.
Good question, Dwayne.
So I think the initial focus is this committee kind of decided is being on more or less room reservations and the process involving custodial and AV, focusing on that and being able to develop some goals in terms of performance, utilization, process that we can measure against and report on. And if we have ability to put actual data out there on real life performance and usage, it will help with some of the narrative that is ongoing in the community. It all has to be based on, you know, what are the adopted policies, what are the adopted rules and parameters of those goals. But I think that'll be beneficial in describing the narrative and are we achieving and what would it take to achieve if we're not? What is the expectation of the community against those goals? Is there a desire for higher, lower, different? A good ongoing discussion. If you have anything you wanna...
I think it might be interesting, and you said it, Nancy, we kind of reverse engineered on some of this, but to now take a look at what we've gone through with room reservations and delivery and walk through this framework and see if we come to the same conclusion. Because we kind of came to a conclusion already, but does the process work?
I mean, looking at section 4, we sort of focused on utilization KPIs here. In one particular area.
Right.
And that's, you know, it's reasonable to start there because the numbers are there. It's relatively straightforward. I think what we should be doing as a committee is, or as a task force rather, is to suggest that we move forward with, is it importance KPIs, accessibility, cost efficiency? Which of the next group of these should we focus on next? Should staff focus on next? I think a lot of people would argue cost efficiency. But I can see importance being equally. But there's a lot of good work here, and I want us to continue to use it and advance on it. And so therefore, I feel like we should say, okay, let's figure out for the next 6 months, section 4.4, cost efficiency KPI.
All right, well, thank you very much, Joyce and Ife, and we'll make sure that you two and Kelsey are connected, and we'll see if there's something we could work on for transportation, or some of them, they have these great Excel sheets, and you're good at Excel sheets, so we'll see if we could work on something for the next and our last meeting. Okay?
And let me say, it's good to know that our public universities are producing quality students.
Thank you.
And Ife, I love the new do.
Thank you.
And the fingernails.
All right, well, the last thing we have to look at today is this document that I just drafted, the task force recommendations, and I've already jotted down a number that we talked about today in addition to this. But I wanted to just get everybody's feedback on what recommendations we might want to put forward. Are there missing things? Are there things that aren't quite right? I've also tried to go through some of our previous discussions and include things that we've talked about at other meetings. So I'd really appreciate just some thoughts on that. And the other thing that I wanted to just check in with everybody on is in our charter, we were asked to provide feedback to Planning and Finance Committee, which we really haven't done. So, I mean, well, we've had people involved in those committees here, but just a question whether you think when we draft our recommendations, we should send them to those committees for comment, or I could make a presentation, just a thought about that. So any thoughts about these recommendations? And I'll take all your feedback and look at the minutes carefully, because I'll redraft it and we'll look at it on April 7th and then maybe do a final version after that. Go ahead, Nancy.
Well, I would just ask, so when it was originally conceived of that we should form a task force and the board discussion, I look back at the charter for the group and the entire time I've been like, I think I understand, I don't really understand. You know, it was a little bit unclear. And so my question would be, what is the board and the people that originally conceived, what do they think of our work? Did we take it in the right direction? What did they want to begin with from us? Or did they just want somebody to start thinking about it and didn't, you know, have a preconceived notion? Because I'd like to know, did we meet the expectation of what was originally conceived of?
I'll say something here. So let's go back to the organ again. So when you learn to play the organ, you learn one scale at a time. We kind of done one scale, and that was the expectation. And what we would be doing is setting up that scale so that we can play the entire keyboard. I'm taking this too far. But we knew it was going to be a much longer process to get there. So I think as an initial step, just looking at what we've learned on room reservations in terms of quality of service and utilization, I mean, that's great information. And that allows us to establish goals and KPIs going forward.
So, you know, what I could do just real quickly, what I could do in terms of this, our final report, let's say, whatever that is. There are 4 key things in our charter that we've addressed to some extent. I think evaluate and determine desired outcomes, and I think we can talk about what we've done, what we found on that. Identify and recommend tools and methods for data collection. We have done some of that. Oversee initiation of data collection and preparation of draft reports. We're doing that with the survey and developing a reporting framework. And we've done that. So what I'd like to try to do is take these key points in the charter and try to at least address what we were able to achieve to some extent. And then I think it's really important for us to make recommendations, because even though some of us here are sitting on the board, I don't know that the board will necessarily see this as something to be continued, if they'll want to focus, have staff work on this. We're not an official committee, we're just a task force. So and it might be that it's one of those items that comes up for discussion when the new board is seated. So I think this is very good work. We want to see it continue in some fashion, but I'm not sure that, well, we can certainly recommend what we want, but yeah.
I thought our charter was to create a KPI model. And then that's what other things are focused around. We've been talking around it. And I've been giving this a little bit of thought.
Okay.
We have processes, we have metrics, then you have a KPI, then you review the KPI results, and then you modify the process if necessary. It's a continuum that keeps going on. And I thought we mainly were focused on the KPI. We have processes, we've seen metrics. I'm not sure that we fully understand the process. Maybe process modeling, which I've talked about in the past, might help. And that might help the staff in getting their hands around exactly what we measure with the KPI. Metrics are metrics, but if there's no context to those metrics, they don't mean anything. And so I just thought our job was to create a KPI model, which we've developed along the way someplace. I've got a copy of it in here.
Yeah, the template.
Yeah, the template.
Would you be willing to just write up what you said and send it to me, or show me your notes there and we can include that?
No, I'll send it to you.
Okay, Nancy.
It just, this is a broken record, but one thing I've said before that I think is a key deliverable from this task force, which is the presentation that Kelsey did on
all the data.
all of, we shouldn't lose, because we shouldn't lose the view of that. And that speaks, the more of the overall, I'm a little frustrated, we only focused on one issue and we left so much information, out there, but that's really good. So people know, here's what we do, here's what it costs, here's what you get out of each of the functions. And if there's a way to kind of keep that front and center, we're measuring the value that RWC offers. And, even on, like, for example, the thing with capital changes upcoming, if we had that information right out there, there's this many staff doing this many things for you that you need to run the community. And, people clearly understand that. That was like amazing work. And just to kind of find a way to keep that front and center. The other thing is Jeff sent out the general plan, which I looked at, and oh my God, I had no idea that was out there. How old is that, Jeff? Not that old.
No, it's pretty old. What, 2012, 2016?
It was updated.
Yeah, I think it originally adopted in like
About 10 years
2012.
old. But we did, it might have been, in terms of our committee, it would have been good to have that up front as like something that we can measure against. And also, like I read, I forget what it was, 50,000 hours or that, like a lot of time was spent putting that together, and it's still good for the most part. And so that's something that, we could maybe tweak it, although God knows I don't want to spend 50,000 more hours on such a thing, but something like that is what we can use to track our progress against. How are we doing in this? How are we doing on that? Are we providing the right services? Are they fairly allocated? Those are like the essential questions that we're trying to answer.
So Susan, back to your list.
Yeah, my list.
Well, I'll just go, but second to the last bullet point, determine if that suite provides metrics.
Yeah.
I think maybe if we revise that to software or generalize it, because like the new community services software, resident services software, provided for golf and fitness and room reservations, et cetera. Consider use of metrics in RPM. Are you really talking about KPIs?
Yeah, I should have, yeah. I mean, I don't think it's unreasonable to suggest that.
Yeah, I agree, but I think.
Yeah, I'll use KPIs.
Yeah.
I'm happy to change this to software. the reason why I put that in there is several individuals in comments have talked about what can NetSuite do? And are we thinking what NetSuite is doing? So we can just generalize it to software. I might say NetSuite or other software because people have asked me, what is the capacity of NetSuite in terms of this data collection? And we haven't really explored that to any length, I don't think. And I don't know if it's worth exploring.
They got a lot on their plate.
I'm not saying they have to do it. No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, I don't know, is that something we should explore at some point?
Absolutely, at some point, I mean, you might want to put NetSuite and associated software programs. They're all somewhat related just to our member database.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, we don't want to, we need a little time still.
And no, I don't mean to pressure that in any way, but it's just, it was so helpful in terms of the survey that we did, that you were able to push that out because you had an automatic feature that said, here's this program, you could just push it out. So if we're really going to get into working with KPIs, we want to try to find the most.
Is that from Active?
So that's the surveys from SurveyMonkey, but those were individually sent to every reservation.
Oh, you said Vermont Services would be able to push it out, right?
Possibly, yeah.
Possibly, okay,
We're
yeah.
still building, but
Anyway,
right now it was sent individually to
Yeah,
every.
but I'm just trying to think, if we want to do this, I want to make sure we're utilizing as much as possible any automated options that we can do to generate this.
Well, the advantage of NetSuite and the purpose of it in an enterprise is that it is the one source of truth. It has all the data records. There are only one data record for each thing, so you don't have conflicting. And you try and bring all your data into it in a way that it can access it at least. It has a very nice set of tools for creating dashboards, for organizing metrics of various sorts and presenting them to both the board or management team or to an individual so that you can see how well you're doing today. Okay, those are the kinds of things that they promote as being key capabilities of tools any other ERP. So so we need to sort of keep the focus on NetSuite in the sense of saying that should be the way we deliver all these KPIs. So the board, you can go log into your KPI, your NetSuite account, see all the KPIs, see the financials, do everything that you're allowed to do. Theoretically, that's possible. Practically, it's going to take a little while. But I mean, that's the point of it.
Okay.
Your last bullet point had a lot of multi-syllable words, and I didn't understand what you were trying to say. Honestly.
Yeah, you're right. I don't know. Hey, I don't know what I was drinking when I was writing.
I don't know, it must be good because I was wondering about it.
I'll revise this. I think what I was trying to say here is point out in a way what you were saying, Adrian, about balancing the qualitative and quantitative KPIs that we develop or developed in the future, and make sure that those KPIs are appropriately aligned with the services. I mean, some services work better for quantitative, some better for qualitative. I'll just rephrase it, but it really is that balancing of the different types of KPIs and how they align with the services that we're trying to measure.
Would it be useful to perhaps use that as a platform to say, utilize the framework developed by the fellows to evaluate amenities going forward as determined by staff or something?
All right. Okay, all right. Any other comments? Wow.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, please,
Yes,
Nancy,
sorry.
go ahead.
The thing about the fob,
Yeah, the fob.
Explorer use of fobs, hard for me to imagine where we would use those other than the gym, like fob your way if you're walking through Dollar or.
Well, like in all the studios.
It's a studio.
Studios.
I mean, are places, places where people or go in and out.
But people can utilize that when there's a class, not a class, whenever it's empty. I mean, so many people hang out in different places.
Well,
So I don't know, is that utilization if you're just,
but you take the sewing room, where the club is, the only people that can use that are members of the club. So what's the utilization? We don't know.
Remember when we had I am not inclined to remove this. But I mean, I could if everybody tells me.
But yeah, but tell me what you want to fob. I want to know.
Yeah.
Oh,
where would
yeah.
you use
Well,
it?
we asked Kelsey and she put the statistics together about various, like the studios and who's using those studios. Well, in some cases, we had the club number, but in some cases, people that are non-members can use it. So in terms of really developing good data on who's using some of these services or amenities, that would be a way to do that. I mean, we have that in the fitness center, right? I don't know where else, so do you think it's
I think it's
intrusive?
overkill. Yes, I do, personally.
Well,
Yeah, I can't imagine, so let's say I go to my orchestra room, I fob to get in there. What difference does it make if we know how many people opened and closed that door or?
Well, I think the issue that we talked about at the beginning is we need metrics in order to develop KPIs and goals. If we have no metrics,
But this is usage, you're talking about usage.
That's a
right?
metric.
that's metrics.
Usage is
Right, but like,
metric.
okay,
Measuring the importance of the.
they just
room
had
based on
what,
usage.
a full house at the event center on Sunday, that concert. You expect, and half of them are guests? You're
I
not
wouldn't
gonna use
expect
the
it
fob.
really in the event
No,
center.
no,
I'm
they-
thinking more about the studios.
Exclusive use amenities.
Yeah,
Okay.
maybe that's what I
Things that
mean.
go on the event center, whoever's putting that on has a head count because generally they've got food or something going along with it. There's head counts with that.
Yeah,
It's those exclusive amenities that there's no head count other than how many members they have.
Yeah.
There's no data.
well, I'm trying to reframe it so that we're talking about the
I
exclusive.
guess
use
I'm just
amenities.
wondering why.
Okay.
Why? I mean, because every studio has their own rules, right?
Yeah, but you're
Ceramics
looking,
Club, you can only be a member to use it, for instance.
I think it has to do with square foot utilization. How many people are using these physical spaces, square foot utilization?
We used to have shuffleboard. How do we know? that
It was
we have a
no longer
shuffleboard?
using it.
Oh, usage, I see, yeah.
Alan and Nancy, yeah.
So I'm on a board that meets up in the Dollar House and we share the room with the poker people. And they have to walk through our meetings to get to their game to get
Yeah.
started. And then there is this room down here that's called the sewing room or whatever they call it. It's hardly anybody uses. And I.
Be careful, Alan, be careful.
Because I don't sew. But people who don't even, are not members can't even use the sewing machines because you have to be a member to use it. So now you get into, well, I wonder why that room gets to stay like that and we're still hunting for spaces to have board meetings for clubs, other clubs. But if they had the data, they could support themselves. If they don't have the data, who
I
knows?
think, go
Yeah.
ahead, Nancy. and
Well,
then I'll
yeah, I
have a
mean,
thought.
I agree with you that having the data would be good, but I go back to the thing that I presented at the beginning about getting data from the clubs. How many concerts do you have per year? How many people attend your concerts? What are your primary functions? How many people are in your club? That's data we can do something with, fobbing every movement that people, I mean, maybe we could do something with it. But, and then if you have some sort of resource allocation issue, you've got 20 guys that are using the billiard room and 50 men's groups that are struggling even to find space, then you can say it's not really fair. I think we should reallocate the resources. Or are the resources and I don't think fobbing will do it, But of course, I think usage data and just all of that information about what's happening, how many people are using this. I think there was some statistic that was out there about the Les Trump's Performing Arts Room.
Yeah.
Like 1,000 people a year, I forget, 1,000 people are using that room and in and out, lots of different clubs. And I'm just gonna pick on billiards. I've never even been in the room, you know, and
Well, you guys are picking fights here.
just an example, how to allocate resources under scarce resources. It's a scarcity issue, and you know, are there ways to measure if it's fair?
Well, you know, I don't know that I want to take I don't know, like a straw vote, but this particular, you know, maybe at our second or third meeting where we were looking at spaces and how much footage is allocated to different activities and how many people are using those activities, there was somewhat of a consensus that we might want to have a better way to track that. This is expensive, it might not ever happen, so, I mean, but it does give us a chance to try to determine what the actual usage is. But if you folks feel it's too intrusive, I didn't mean it to be intrusive, I'm just trying to figure, I was representing what I thought we had a consensus at a couple meetings ago.
Well, I mean, what will we do?
Would you consider changing the word facilities to exclusive use
Yeah,
amenities?
yeah.
Because I think that narrows it way down, and staff may determine that it's not even doable.
And maybe not use the word key fobs, but somehow just data collection, the metrics. However we collect it
Oh, okay.
would be work, but you need the data.
Okay. All right, is everybody okay with that? I'll get the fob out of there. Okay, the exclusive use amenities. I mean, we're not tracking anybody here. That's not what we're trying to do, but who knows? All right.
Feels like
If
it.
you can't measure it, you can't manage it.
That's right.
What are we gonna
right.
do? Make the billiards club move in this, I mean, I just don't know what we do with that data.
Well,
These
there
are
have been
established.
times-
You would ultimately use it to make decisions.
I mean, we have
Yeah.
changed things. We
Yeah.
no longer have horse paddocks.
Right.
And I mean, those would be great.
I just read in the newspaper about a lot of changes that could be coming up.
Yeah.
You did, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean.
You might need the data to protect yourself.
That's true.
Yeah. Well, I'll change the language here, and we don't, you know, I think it really has to do with how the board and staff, how we're effectively managing our resources and, you know, how space is being allocated, so. Anyway, okay, any other questions? Then we'll be ready for our final meeting, and let me just check one quick thing. Do we think that our work I'm assuming we think our work on KPIs should be continued in some format in the future. Do you want to make a recommendation that the board would continue this effort, or should we leave that up to the board and management? And I just had continue work of the task force in 2026 and beyond. Is that sufficient?
Could it be rolled into planning or policy instead of making it a separate task force so that we don't have to add another group? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, a task force is a short-term thing.
Right,
So where would this kind of analysis live? Do you think it would
Right.
live with the planning committee?
So the issue when you make it a board committee is board members only.
No, but I mean,
Really
an
helpful.
existing committee, not folded into an existing,
As a
not,
subcommittee.
yeah, not create a whole new committee. That wasn't what I was thinking.
Not for me to figure out.
You got one foot out the door.
Can't pull that
Oh,
cord.
no, but I mean, I know the finance,
At least the.
the finance committee has, I mean, they have a huge charge. I don't, it seems like it might be reasonable there. The audit committee is very focused.
No, the audit committee's not very helpful.
No.
I mean, in some ways, planning, because if you're going to do something, which, you know, create a new amenity of some sort, make changes, planning needs to justify that based on some metric of some sort, or some reason for creating it. So in some ways, it's maybe most associated with planning, but there's lots of places where it doesn't fit.
Yeah, when we put this structure together, we wanted somebody from finance, wanted somebody from planning, and we wanted residents involved. And so there's value to all of that, and it's interconnected. Because a lot of KPIs, when you're talking about RPM.
Yeah, that's a
you're
whole
looking into
different,
a lot of
yeah,
financial
yeah.
metrics. That's not planning at all.
Yeah.
So you guys.
Who's gonna create the KPIs?
Ultimately, I would say the staff has to do that.
So I would think we were chartered by the board to create a model for the KPIs, which in my little brain here implies that you're responsible for the KPIs now because your staff will have to be creating them from the data that they have. And I would think not create a whole nother committee or staff, just the board, if every once in a while they could say, hey, Jeff, how are we doing on blah, blah, blah? And he should be able to produce it. It's up to them. I don't know why we need another committee to deal with this.
Well, if each group or service had a mission, stated mission, value that they were doing, like I keep saying, that has to come first. Here's what we're trying to do, here's our goal that we're trying to do. Now, are we getting there and how are we gonna measure it? So, you just kind of go down the list of services, back to Kelsey's schedule, that we would do something like that. As for whether it should be housed in the finance committee, if you house it in the finance committee, you're gonna have to change the charter of the finance committee because there's a very limited scope, as I've felt. It says the committee examines budget proposals and operations and capital equipment budgets and capital plan, et cetera, et cetera. So it's strictly there on an advisory basis about budgets. That seems to be the limit. So if we wanted to say.
This is a board decision.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
We
So
can
I'm gonna-
recommend
yeah.
that this effort continues.
Yeah, that's what, we'll recommend generally that this effort continues.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. All right. Well, I kind of have that in here. Okay,
Yes.
all right. I didn't mean to get into too much of the details, but we want to do our job here, right? So we can show the board that we've done what they asked us to do, or at least we've given it a good try. Okay, so we're gonna call it quits here at 2:20, 2:21. Okay, thanks, everybody.
Thank you.